Well, that was kind of fast. I'm not gonna lie, I'm super surprised to be seeing this pop up as quickly as it has been, but today we're going over to the Calgary Flames and we're talking about the big fish free agent that they signed in the offseason. The guy that they were able to get because they didn't re-sign Gaudreau. Actually, you could say they got him because they didn't get Tkachuk back, or was it Gaudreau and then Tkachuk, or whatever, but either way, the Flames got themselves two big names last offseason. They got Jonathan Huberdeau from the Florida Panthers, and they also grabbed themselves in free agency former Colorado Avalanche Stanley Cup champion Nazem Kadri. And this season I've been very vocal about my own fantasy projections and how poorly Nazem Kadri had been playing in comparison to what everybody thought he would be able to do. Last season, Nazem Kadri was a 100-point pace player. He had 87 points in 71 games played. Do the math, 100-point pace, he was supposed to be really good. But this season, I've been very vocal that, hey, he's been kind of disappointing. I also got Johnny Gaudreau on my team from Columbus, and he was even more disappointing, so it's kind of a miracle I even made it to the finals of my fantasy league anyway. It's over now, by the way, but yeah. Nazem Kadri has had a season where if you had told anybody last year when the Flames signed this guy in free agency to that $7 million AAV deal till 2029, I think a lot of people would have said, wow, that's a pretty disappointing year. 51 points, 75 games played. He's on pace for 56 points over the full 82. And the thing is, it's not even just Nazem Kadri who is performing quote-unquote poorly for this Calgary Flames team. You have Jonathan Huberdeau, also underproducing. You've got a lot of players in this team not living up to their potential. Daryl Sutter has been seen as a problem this season. You've been having a lot of conversations about the Flames and their inadequacies, how this team is just not functioning correctly after the departure of Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau, but we've made a lot of videos about that already. This video instead is focusing mostly on Naz, because if you go over to a recent article on The Athletic, take a look at this Hockey Hall of Fame selection process, the Flames' struggles, and Duhacek's notebook. This was from March 24th, 2023, so a few days ago, but because The Athletic is paid for material, what we're going to do is go over onto Spectre's Hockey from March 28th, which was yesterday, and read what it was that Duhacek says about the Calgary Flames' supposed superstar. Lyle Richardson is the guy who writes it. We'll leave a link in the description to both the Athletic piece as well as this Spectre's Hockey piece, but if you scroll down, this is what is written about in the Athletic article. Could the Flames try to trade Nazem Kadri this summer? Eric Duhacek noted that a reader asked him if the Calgary Flames should trade Nazem Kadri this offseason because he isn't producing at last season's levels and he seems to be a poor fit with the Flames. Duhacek said in short, the answer on trading Kadri is not yet. That's because what we're seeing of the 32-year-old center this season is typical for most expensive free agents in the first season of their contract with their new clubs. They usually need a season to adjust and often perform better in the second season. Further complicating things is Kadri has a full no-movement clause in his contract. Spectre's note goes out there and says this: Calgary has plenty of disappointment over the Flames' performance that isn't just limited to Kadri. Unless they hire a new GM with an agenda to shake up the roster, I expect we'll see him skating with the Flames next season. Now, Kadri is 32 years old. The contract goes on till 2029, so he's going to be 38 when this expires, and $7 million AAV for a guy that's only getting 51 points in 75 games played is a pretty big overpayment. And Nazem Kadri had a really good season last year, so I definitely want to give him that benefit of the doubt. You know, he's still fresh enough off of a 100-point pace a year that if he comes back next season and let's say gets 70 to 80 points, I wouldn't be too surprised. But at this point, I think it's more than appropriate to turn the hazard lights on and say, okay, there's something going on here that's not just limited to Kadri, and if the Calgary Flames want to make use in the best way possible of what Kadri has to offer, then you kind of have to go out there and explore the idea of other changes. We're talking about Daryl Sutter. We're talking about a shakeup to the roster. We're talking about new systems in place. See what Jonathan Huberdeau could do with a different coach and a different sort of line strategy assigned to him. The Calgary Flames are not in the playoffs at the moment. If you go over to the NHL standings and you check where they're at in the wild card, Calgary is currently, where are they? Yeah, they're what is that, 2 points behind the Winnipeg Jets for the final wildcard spot. So this is not looking all too great when it comes to where the Flames are going to go in the next few days here. The Calgary Flames need to start winning games, and that has been difficult for them. Long story short, so with these players, Huberdeau, Kadri, not really performing up to expectations, you have to see what shakeups are possible for your roster. And in fact, things get even worse when you look at this article on thescore.com, published by Kayla Douglas. Take a look at these comments made by Daryl Sutter on Kadri's recent struggles, and how it's not about his compete level. Calgary Flames forward Nazem Kadri appears to be busting out of his recent slump with goals in back-to-back games, and head coach Daryl Sutter emphasized that the veteran's recent struggles have nothing to do with his effort level. "I just think with Naz," Sutter said, "the summer and the season have been a race, right? You see him today, you get 2 days since the last game, and you see more energy again out of him. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It's not about his compete." The context here is that Kadri went 16 games without scoring a goal prior to Thursday's defeat to the Vegas Golden Knights. Those guys just gave everything they had, and that's all they had left, Sutter said. He went through that run and then being a free agent and all that, and so questioning the guy's effort level is off base. It's just strictly getting the guy's energy back. And this is sort of the thing. I don't really know how fair it is to talk about Nazem Kadri and the schedule and use that as the reason as to why Kadri has been slumping. Can you say the same thing about Jonathan Huberdeau too? Oh, it's the schedule. It's the amount of games they're playing. Because realistically, Calgary has had a pretty okay schedule when it comes to the travel. I mean, they're right there close to Edmonton. They're not as far away from everybody as Vancouver is. And you had superstar caliber players last year being able to accomplish what they did in Gaudreau and Tkachuk, as they were both able to get 100 points. Like, what's going on differently now that makes you say, okay, well, it's the schedule that's the problem. Huberdeau, Kadri, these guys, they just need time to rest, and then they'll be able to do all right. For his part, Kadri said Thursday that his relationship with the hard-nosed coach is fine, and chalked up any speculation of a rift, according to TSN Salim Valji, and this has been another thing that had popped up as well, too. Like, okay, whether or not Huberdeau or Kadri are both, or one of, each of them are kind of ticked off at the idea of playing under Sutter again because the way he's coached this team has not been all too great. There's a lot of speculation going out there, but I just kind of wanted to stick to what we've seen and what's written about in articles here. So either way, when it comes to Nazem Kadri and the idea of trading him away after this season, firstly, good luck on finding a suitor. Anybody going out there and looking at Nazem Kadri from this season could see what happened and say, all right, well, even though you could chalk it up to the coaching staff, you could chalk it up benefit of the doubt, say, okay, he wasn't really put in the right position to succeed in 2022-2023, there's still such a big risk in trying to go after a guy signed for 6 years until the end of 2030, or 2029, excuse me, making $7 million a year at 32 years old. Like, he's not going to get any younger, so it's going to be pretty difficult to try to justify the idea of trading for him unless you are super adamant that this season was an outlier and that you could bring out the best of this guy in your system. And heck, if you really wanted to try to make it worth your time, maybe try to go out there and retain some salary on the guy, or get some salary retained by Calgary, for instance. Okay, Nazem Kadri was performing poorly under you, you want to trade him away? Here, we'll give you all this stuff, but you need to retain, let's say, 25% of that deal. All of a sudden, it becomes a little bit easier to stomach. And of course, Kadri himself has to allow the trade because he's got that no-move clause in that contract, so it's ultimately up to him, but based off of everything that we've been sort of speculating about the Calgary Flames, if Nazem Kadri is okay with the trade, then hey, be my guest. We'll see what happens if this guy ends up getting on the move. But like Eric Duhatschek says in the Athletic article, he's not really too sure it's going to happen because free agents normally perform better in their second year anyway. If that's the case, then hey, I wonder what Andrei Kuzmenko is going to be able to do next season. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Nazem Kadri and the idea of him getting traded over to another team after this poor season with the Calgary Flames. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.